My name's Eddie Williams. I want to thank people for coming out. My business partner, Mark Moblin, and I, we put these real estate meetings on monthly. It's always the third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. And our meetings are held here at Kirby's, Coney Island, here in Southfield at Northwestern and 10 Mile. All right. This evening, we're honored to have with us Mr. Derek Scruggs. Mr. Scruggs is a very experienced flipper. He has flipped over 250 houses, and he got started over 20 years ago. I don't know the exact date, but he got started over 20 years ago. And I was thinking about today, I had forgotten about this, but the first time I met Mr. Scruggs, I was wholesaling or trying to wholesale my first house, and Mr. Scruggs came and looked at it. He looked at the house, and I told him my price. He told me, "You have this house price too much." So that was my first introduction to wholesaling. But Derek's going to talk to us about flipping, and he's also moved on into other areas. He's going to talk to us about flipping homes, and he's also moved on into other areas of the state. So without further ado, Mr. Derek Scruggs.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. Well, I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible today. I was telling Tom, I've been through the whole gamut of real estate. Just to start off a little bit, when I first started, I started off in the real estate mortgage business. So in 1996, I was a mortgage broker. So that's basically my foray into learning the quote unquote real estate business. I learned the numbers, the LTVs, the debt ratios, what I could afford, what I couldn't afford, what's appraised value, how to get appraisal. So I always tell people, a lot of times when you get into business, the more well-rounded you are, the better you are, and the more you do. It's not that you can't ask other people for information, but you want to know your information yourself. Another thing I learned was the fact that once I got into the mortgage business, I wanted to get into some kind of passive income. So I started flipping property. Not flipping property, I started doing rentals. So from like 96 till about 2008, me and our partners, we owned or had partnerships in about 75 to 80 different properties. We had 3 apartment buildings, and the rest, the other 35 to 40 were all single family homes or whatever. And we had a couple of 2 families. Now, everybody knows 2008, the market went kind of haywire. So sometimes you have to reposition the prosper or whatever. T.G. Jake says all the time. So what we did was we just figured out a system. So most all the houses that we had in 2007, 2008, we actually ended up getting a lot of the houses back for like pennies on dollars. The house we were owned, and we owed $100,000. We might have bought that same house back in 2008, 2009 for $12,000, $13,000. So even though it took a hit maybe on my credit, but the fact that we were able to pick all those houses back up for pennies on dollars. Good thing about it in that period of time, the market for the rental markets was still pretty good. So we was renting houses out in Rosedale Park, Bagley, University. We were renting them out for $1,900, $1,200 a month. Think about it. We only paid $15 to $18. A lot of times the house was still in pretty good shape because we just took it back from the people who lost it and we just started renting it out. We kept that for a long period of time, but then when the market went back up, and I was telling Tommy, when Dan Gilbert came in and he basically created a land bank, these houses basically exploded in price. And how the price was determined a lot of times in that period of time was based on the rehab. So if Dan Gilbert or Home Depot put a value together for $80,000, a house in that area that might have been selling for $30,000, they did $8,000 in rehab, then that would be their new appraised value because the appraiser could use the rehab value to give you the numbers. And what we did was we just followed the leader. So we just started buying houses in everywhere that Home Depot / land bank would buy houses. We just followed them around for a long period of time. And that's how we really got back into the flip game. In 2014, a lot of them houses were $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. We could put 25 or 30 into it and sell it for whatever the max value could be. And we knew we had comparable values. So sometimes it's good to follow a leader. So for anybody who's looking to maybe flip or whatever it is, find, if you're in Detroit, I think you're in Rick Rules, such a different area. Most all the houses that land bank were doing were in the city of Detroit. That's on the east side or west side. So if you're looking for houses, find go to their own now website or land bank, find houses that they have for sale. And you can use that as a value, and they'll show you what the rehab value is going to be, what they spend in rehab, and then what the actual appraised value. It's going to give you a good number to start it. So a lot of times when people trying to feel confident, let's say you don't know how to use Zillow or Tulia, or you don't have access to MLS, you can just go to the land bank and find those areas. So that's a good way for you to start. So one thing a lot of people always ask, where should I start at? Well, first thing I always tell is try to start close to where you at. Because at least if it's your area, you at least know the surroundings. Right? In Detroit, you can be on 4223, but you could be 4223, you could be in Brightmore, or you could be in Rosedale Park, right? So try to buy or invest in areas you know. And that's what we did. So when I first got started, I lived in 48219. Most of all the houses I bought was in the 48219. So 7 Mile Southfield, from maybe Evergreen to Greenfield, and from 8 Mile to 6 Mile. That was my area. We're trying to find an area that you can what we call surround and circle, look at, and drive for dollars in this situation. So you probably watch videos and you see different people. You say, well, how do I find a house? Drive for dollars, right? So if you go down enough streets, you're gonna see a vacant house. Pull the address up and see if you can maybe go to the city assessor and see if you can find who owns it. Send a letter out. Find somebody who can maybe in the Mark Maupin organization that can help you to be able to find the owner. Send them a letter out. I bought maybe 25 or 30 houses just ride around, see a vacant house. Like that house been vacant for a while. Let me see if I can find who owns the house. Once I find out who owns the house, I send a contact them. I send a letter out. Sometimes they don't respond. Sometimes I can do reverse search and find a number. Now I have a way to be able to contact them to be able to find a personal owner. Once I find a personal owner, now I got a house. I can set it up. But these are just little ways I was showing you on how to start. So what I'm trying to do today is, if possible, I'm gonna ask a couple questions. And the reason why I ask is just to see what everybody's knowledge. Like, what's your name? No, you're right. Yeah.
Carolyn.
Okay, Carol. Have you done any real estate yet?
Actually, I took a class. Got a certification.
Okay. Well, what's your goal? I mean, in the ideal world, you blink your eyes and everything would be come out. What would you like to have?
I just like to be able to afford things and not worry about, how I'm going to pay for it. Like that.
Well, the reason I asked the question is,
Can you repeat the question?
I said, the question I always ask is, in an ideal world, if you could close your eye, I Dream of Genie was right in front of you, you could make your own wish, what would it be in real estate? Now, in other situations it's there, what would be your ideal situation? And the reason why is because once you figure out what that is, I can help create a plan. Because the key to the situation is, it's steps to every situation. From if you want to flip, it's 6 or 7 steps you need to have. If you want to do rental, it's 6 or 7 steps you need to have. And I think I was telling Tommy, he was saying, well, I'm first getting started. I asked him what would his ideal situation be? When I first got started, I was looking for cash flow. And the reason why I looked for cash flow because I figured out if I get 10 houses, each one of them paid me $800 a month, that's $8,000 a month coming in. Let's say half of it went out for expenses from mortgages and whatever it is. It left me $4,000 left. $4,000 in disposable income. That gives people a little more freedom to do what they want to do. Now you ain't worried about gas $5. You don't really worry about it, right? It's things you can look at situations that set up. Because the fact is, when you flip a house, how many times you get paid? One time. So that's the difference with flipping a house. Maybe like you get dressed up for a big occasion, and when that's the occasion, it's all over again. But the good thing about rentals is that occasion comes every month. Every month. It starts on 1st to 30th, and next thing you know, you got a check coming in every month. So it just depends on what your plan is. I tried to have a hybrid. I want to flip a property, and for every property I flip, I want to get a rental. So I took a little bit of the cash I got from the flip, and I invested that into doing rentals. In today's situation, you got a lot of different ways. You can do Airbnb where you don't necessarily have to basically own the house. You can lease the property and rent it out. There's different situations that you can have that people can look at, because at the end of the day, you're just looking for cash flow. How it comes is different, right? You can have a situation where you go out and do a typical where you buy a house for $20,000, you put $15,000 into it, and now you rent it out. Now, what kind of tenant do you want? That's another situation. Well, I specialize in dealing with veterans. So they got different types of veteran programs. They got what they call a badge program. which is identical to what they call, everybody, show hands, everybody know what Section 8 is? Well, they got a program just like that for veterans called VASH. VASH stands for Veteran Assisted Supportive Housing Program. And when I tell you they got programs available for those, so forth, I always say VASH is like Section 8 on steroids. And what I mean by that is, I've never had to evict a veteran for non-payment of rent. I've had to evict them for different reasons, but not non-payment of rent. Because what happens is, from Volunteers of America, Disability Network, to Rock Financial, they got funds for displaced veterans. So when I get a property, I'm gonna use an example. I had a 20-unit building, 1685 last year. I bought it, I fixed it, and I put 20 veterans in there. 20 veterans paid me $650 a month. And every month, I had guaranteed money, $1,300. I mean, $13,000 came in every month because I had veterans in there. That was through the veteran volunteers, VASH program. And the VASH program is actually managed, and it's actually inspected and managed by the same individuals that does Section 8. So the one that we used was through RPI, and basically they would come out and do an inspection, and 90% of my Section 8 tenants, not Section 8 tenants, my VASH tenants, would be individuals 60 and up. So we used, let me take a step back. What I tried to do is I tried to have a niche in the market. I only dealt with male seniors, and that was my niche. Not that they didn't have, they had families for veterans or whatever, but what I did was, with that, and for me, it was low maintenance. My water bill, and not saying that they for you. I mean, but think about it, I had one individual in the house, right? I had one individual, the guy was 60, 65 years old, so I didn't have that much maintenance, right? So my water bill was a lot lower. The turnover, what we call commotion was a lot lower because it was there. A lot of these guys, they had stories, so the fact that their biggest thing they did was when they woke up in the morning, they wanted to go out and smoke a cigarette. So we created a section in the back where they could basically go out, play cards, smoke cigarettes, whatever it is. We had a little ride that we could take them to, the good thing was we had it centrally located right on 6 Mile and Lasher, so we were actually less than a half mile from Myers on 6 Mile. So once a month, we picked them up, take them to Myers, they get their food, come back. So they took ownership in the house. So basically, a lot of times, they cut our grass, they did more maintenance. So I actually built a whole construction crew with a lot of these older guys because the fact that they were 60, they didn't need the money, but they just want to sit in the house every day. So they basically did a lot of work for me. So a lot of them were skilled carpenters or whatever. They're not looking to work full time, but it was just, I built a whole crew out of us in there working with that. So that was my niche in the market, was veterans, 60 and older, male. Not being discriminated, just the fact that that was my niche. And now, anytime I get a building, I can fill a building up in probably 30, 60, 90 days with just veterans, and I'm gonna get guaranteed rents. I'm gonna get a certain kind of clientele. I know what kind of issues that they typically have, whatever it is, that I know how to control it. So the fact that if you're gonna get a tenant, try to figure out what your tenant is gonna be, who you gonna understand, because what happens is once you get if you get a regular Section 8 tenant, you can't technically discriminate, right? You can't just say I want this lady with 5 kids to move in the house. No, you can deny that person, but you can't really discriminate. When mine, after a while, all the veteran supportive housing program knew who I was. So when they found somebody like my need or whatever it is, they would send it. So to this day, I may get a call once or twice a week where if I can say, hey, I got 2 displaced veterans. Do you have any places for them? So I actually created a tenant placement business just for veterans. If I don't have a place, I can call people who I know that has apartments, houses, or whatever it is, and I put one of these people in their places or whatever for them. But the fact is, I can pretty much give them a kind of idea of, okay, this the person is going to be here, this is going to be set up. And let me tell you the pros to it. They got 19 different agencies. So if you're going to move in, a lot of times you're moving the old to something new. Well, most of my veterans, when they move in, guess what? They got agency to come furnish their house. So a lot of times when they move in, they got new bedding, they got new stove, they got new refrigerator, whatever it is. Okay. During the holidays, whatever it is, they may have a little problem with their payment. Well, they got 7 agencies where that fact is, if they behind on their payment or rent or whatever it is, their agencies go to Rock Financial, to Disability Network, to Volunteers of America, Southwest Solutions. If they get behind, they get covered. But what happens is, if they have 1 or 2 slip ups, instead of me having to always worry about trying to fix it, I can basically use that as my situation. So I don't use it all the time, but if they get behind, I can tell them, hey, this is what. Plus on top of that, let's say, for example, in the wintertime, when we bill a little higher, whatever, they have problems with the heat. A lot of these guys, they're a little older in those situations. So what we do is we have a place where we monitor their bill. So if they get behind, we'll call one of the agencies, hey, look, the person is running a little bit behind their bill, and you help them pay their bills or whatever it is. So now instead of getting their water bill or their light bill or gas bill cut off, they're paying for them or whatever. So this is a unique situation. So I just learned the whole program, and every particular situation that I could probably get, I got it. And then that was my niche in the market. And that's what I tell people in this business, try to figure out what little niche you can be in mind with just badge. You know, like when I first got started, I didn't know about badge, so I dealt with Section 8. Section 8 came with pros and cons. I had guaranteed rent. But does anybody know what happened with Section 8 a lot of times? Anybody know? Well, what happens is you get a yearly inspection, and what happens is you have to basically keep the property up to date or up to code into a certain situation. So what happens is in that particular situation is you in 12 months, it could be a decent amount of damage done to the house, but for you to continue to keep that person in there, you have to basically renew that particular tenant or do whatever repair and give you a list of whatever it is. Now, what we did was to try to alleviate that was we did quarterly inspection. Every 90 days, we would go to the house, do an inspection. So at least they saw somebody coming in. We wouldn't be surprised of this big laundry list of stuff to take care of in that particular situation. Now, what we also did was we would alert the agency, whether it was Detroit Housing, Plymouth Housing, RPI, we would let them know, hey, look, this tenant is negligent, this tenant take pictures, so documentation is key. So what happens is that Section 8 tenant does not want to lose that voucher. So at least you got something to at least leverage them on. Say, hey, look, we let your Section 8 inspector know that the fact is that you this house has a big size and you're gonna have to do some kind of upkeep to get the situation. So at least we keep them on that part. So, but what happened was with Section 8, I figured out, well, how can I get the same thing? Guaranteed rent with limited downside, and that's how we found back. So half the battle is you plan, do, and review, right? So we planned, we did it, and reviewed. And then on the review part, that's how we came up with the batch program.
So my name is Andrea.
How you doing?
I'm good. So is it easier to, I guess it's kind of a crazy question. I don't know anything about real estate, so I'm just learning and want to get into it. But I've never heard of the DASH program. I know it seems to be more people. I hear about Section 8 all the time. So is it like difficult to get into that program?
It's actually the same as Section 8. Okay. The only thing different is just like it's a different ticket. So instead of having majority of your Section 8 is going to be
Can you repeat the question?
I say, well, they say, what's the difference between Section 8 and BAG? There's really no difference. The compliance part, the inspection part, they're done by the same agency. So let's say RPI, Plymouth Housing, these agencies, they do the inspection. The difference is the tenant. So instead of me dealing with a single woman with 3 kids, I'm dealing with a senior that's 65 years old and might be displaced. And what I mean by displaced, they got housing agencies that these agencies work by. There's a lot of times they may be staying in a hotel, and it's actually costing the agency, let's say $40, $50 a day to stay in that particular situation. So would they rather pay $50 a day at the Best Western for 30 days, which costs them $1,500, or would they rather pay me $800? I become like a hero. As soon as I can get something, they call me, like, look, we need 7 people. You'd be surprised at how many displaced veterans. It's a lot more than you think. So it's a waiting list.
I have one more question though. So you mentioned about the inspections with Section 8 every year. Yeah. I hear some of my patients who are property owners talk about that. So BASH doesn't require.
Yeah, it's the same as BASH.
Oh, okay.
What I was saying is, just think about it. Just look at it. I got a 60-year-old.
You're right. Oh yeah, no, I
that's the reason I say. So it's the same inspection, but what happens is this 60-year-old guy doing a lot less damage than a single woman with 3 kids. She's working, she's out, kids are home, they're doing this control wear and tear. So what I
Yeah,
did was I tried to find my ideal tenant. And my ideal tenant was this person that was 60 and up. And the fact is, they were looking, and I tried to create more of a home kind of scenario. So like on Thanksgiving, me and my partner, we cook for them, take them to dinner or whatever it is. A lot of them, they are seniors, so they have certain issues or whatever it is. So the family may not be there. So us taking a Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas, we take time out of our situation, take them over there, do that. Now they become situations. So instead of them just looking at that place as an apartment, they're looking at it as a home. So guess what? They cut the grass, they tell us what's going on. They tell them on anything that go on in there and whatever it is. So it's a good situation. We figured out how can we become the best landlord in this particular area. And we just figured out all the pros and cons. In that situation, out of 20 tenants, 2, 3 of them had cars. Well, you would think, okay, why ain't they got cars? Well, a lot of them had bad driver's license. Some of them had DWIs, whatever it is. So we just figured out we had a van. We would take them back and forth to the VA. Because a lot of them had different issues going back to see whatever it is. So we created all a situation, and they had programs that would actually pay us for that too as well. So on top of just the regular rent, we had subsidy that would pay us for taking them back and forth to the VA, taking them back and forth to wherever they need to go to. So we just created a situation so tenants wanted to pay us. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Dana Hamlet. Can you create that same scenario with a single family house? Say you have a 4-bedroom house, you put a veteran in each room.
Okay.
Have you done that?
No.
Repeat the question.
The question is, can you do that into like a boarding house, right?
Yes.
So basically what it is a single house and each one got their own bedroom. That's actually one of the fastest growing signals I found out. I haven't done it myself. Let me tell you the pros and cons to it. Pros to it, in fact, is that one house, instead of it making you 800, it's making you 2,000. Because basically, you can you got a common kitchen, you got a common bathroom, and then in each room, that person basically got their own little space. And then basically, what you do is create lockers in the basement for them to store their stuff or in the garage or whatever it is. Now, the only issue you have with that is the fact is you got to pay the utilities for everything, right? So, because when you put them in there, you got to furnish the place too. When they come in, you got to have a bed, you got to have the appliances, you got to have everything in there. So you have to make sure that you allocate for all the expenses, right? Then on top of that, you have to have what they call like somebody in charge, because you may not, unless you want to do it yourself, you want to have somebody collecting from, because most of these people get paid every week. So like most of your boarding houses, instead of like with Section 8, they pay us, or badge, they pay us once a month. So let's say we get ours on 2nd, 3rd, whatever date it is for that agency, we get it on that month, on that day. Most of your boarding houses, you get paid once a week. You pay once a week because they get it set up. I'm quite sure they do have programs, but what I could do is I give you the contact to a couple people who I deal with, and if you're looking for it, you can probably figure out, because we ran a quote unquote house like that before, and the problem was it was just if I ain't saying it was a nightmare, it just was a lot more.
Keep it real.
Well, no, what happens is this. You just had to have more attention to that situation because you're getting paid once a week, right? So, and then you got to realize you got 6 different people in there, everybody paying at the same time. So you got to go figure out situations set up. I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny, but you got one person that's cold, one person hot, so one person keeping the window open, one person, another person, he's loud or whatever it is. So you got to try to mesh those personalities together to be able to set the situation up. Well, if you only got, the reason why we do bash and we do single family houses, we do single units was because whatever issue you have, you in this one unit. Then that next unit, he may be nasty, but he in this unit, whatever it is. And that's what we figured out. But we had one for a while. And you got to find somebody who's got a strong personality because people want to be led, right? So to get them into that leadership program, you got to basically be able to tell them that, okay, well, when they move out or if they don't pay, what's the consequence? What's your turnover? How do you get them out? It's all different kinds of situations where the fact is you can do it. It's very profitable. I know 2 guys, they got a 6 or 7 of them, they run them. I just don't. It's just not my cup of tea. So everybody got a situation, but it's a very, very, very profitable business if you got the time to do it. And most of these guys are kind of hands-on, so they run these themselves, whatever it is. Getting it and delegating to somebody else, I believe delegate. I always tell people in this business, your property management gonna be the key to this business if you rent it. Because the fact is, how fast you react or don't react is how much you're gonna pay. So you got a problem and nobody respond to it, they're gonna be in that situation. Well, heck, somebody didn't pay you. Well, when are you sending your 7-day notices out? When are you calling back for late payments or whatever it is? If it's a repair getting done, how fast they coming up? Your tenant's gonna respond to you that way situation. Well, just match, you're gonna do that same thing by 8, 10 people. Right? That's the issue you have with that. It works. And if you go to, like I said, I text you the contacts I got through Bash, not Bash, but through Volunteers America. You got Volunteers America, right here. You got Volunteers America, Disability Network, and one other one, Hands. These are all agencies that.
Can you repeat those?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Okay,
say.
you got Volunteers America, Disability Network, and Hands. These are all agencies that work directly with veterans. And I give you my contact, so give them a call, give you more information about that. They do have, I think, this particular situation. It just didn't work for me, and then my niche and my 20 units worked out better for me than I did for. I'm sorry.
Another question, how much do you pay your property manager?
8 to 10%.
Repeat that question.
How much do you typically pay your property manager? 8 to 10%. Well, in that situation, what typically happen that when you have those, that person is typically staying in the house too. So it's a different situation. So you may offset him with his rent or whatever it is.
Right.
So it could be a different situation. You want to give him some kind of stipend because the fact that he's doing extra, but typically it's somebody in the house because the fact that you want to have some kind of eyes and ears in there. So like in our building, we always have what we call like just like a manager. He may get there and he just tell what goes on. If there's something coming in, we know what's going on. Sorry, ma'am.
For the veterans, would an ideal situation like if you had like a 4-family, maybe 2 bedrooms each, but you would need to put a family in each, like a veteran family in each?
Couldn't you put, no, okay, like, let me explain.
I wouldn't want to deal with the 2 persons, 2 veterans in one apartment.
No, what happens is, okay, let's say for example, my ideal customer was a single male that was looking to, but you could do that same thing with veterans. What if I did, let's say for example, husband and wife. Now you can have a 2-bedroom, husband and wife, whatever it is. And their rates are exactly the same as regular Section 8. So it's not like anything different. So if you got 1 bedroom, it's no different between BASH or Section 8. It's the same voucher rate or whatever it is. So if you got 2 bedrooms, it's going to be the same. So it'd just be hard for a single person to get a 2-bedroom to qualify for it. Because it's 2 parts of Section 8 that is the qualifying, the amount of money they have to the room they have. So if you only got 1 person, it's hard for Section 8 to approve you for that part or whatever it is. You still got to qualify. But if it's a husband and wife, or maybe a husband, wife, and an older child or whatever it is, it's ideal for them. So I do have people who do have 4 family, and they deal more with families because they got 2 bedrooms instead of 1 bedroom.
So you're saying that you have a contact at BASH that you use?
Well, let me rephrase that. It's not a contact at BASH, it's a contact with veterans. And what they do is, so like Volunteers America, Disability Network, and they actually supply the veterans for you. And then the veteran either come in 1 of 3 situations. You got a self-supported veteran that, let's say, for example, for whatever reason, they make $1,500, $2,000, $2,500. Their income is good, but they could have been displaced, whatever. Like one of my veterans, he paid $3,000, but what happened was he had some medical issues and he couldn't take care of something. So they put him in a situation, and then once his health got back to normal, then he needed to be put into regular housing, and then they called me to put in a single individual, whatever it is, had income. So that's the issue you have. That's the situation you have in a lot of them. It's not because of the fact that they don't have no money coming in, but most of them on Social Security, disability. And remember, all of them 60 and up. So they have some income coming in. Now, one thing I did that was unique was we put them all on what we call auto pay. And what I did was each one of the ones we had, we made it set up as mandatory that the fact that they had to have their payments set up on auto pay. And what I mean by that was some of the people didn't pay 100%. So let's say the rent was $650. Bash might have paid $520, so I left $130, right? Well, $130 is probably your profit, so you want to make sure you get that. So what we did was we just set it up on auto pay, where the fact that we pull the money on whatever day their Social Security disability. So they had to have some form of income coming in. So the section that the Social Security came in on the third Wednesday every month, that's the day we took it out. So we took it out. But we didn't have to chase people down. So that's another way. You won't have predictable income coming. See where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So what happens is when you don't have predictable income, then now you just wait and chase the situation. So we know that like we got your money on the 16th, by the 17th, if it didn't go through, we knew. We wasn't chasing time to get the situation. We know the day that the other money was coming in, because if it was RPI was coming in on third, if it was Plymouth Housing was coming in on fifth, we knew what day it was coming in on. But then if you had a copay, we can just have it set up to come out that way.
So these different agencies, so Volunteers of America, Rock Financial, RPI.
No, Rock Financial, that's different. That's Rock Financial. What they do is, let's say, for example, you got behind, they have funds set up aside for veterans. So let's say, for example, you get behind, that's Rock Financial. Volunteers of America, what they do is, they're the placement agencies, Volunteers of America and Disability Network. They're the ones where the displaced veterans go. Rock Financial, they just have funds in case they get behind.
So just for understanding, Volunteer of America, I'm a veteran. They're paying my rent, right? Because I'm in a situation where I can't pay. So when you have the automatic payment set up, you have Volunteers of America who is paying that rent to you towards his veteran.
Yeah. Well, they tell you what day they're gonna send you the money. So like with Volunteer America, hey,
One of the most important things when you're doing a contract with the contractor is putting in time is of the essence. And have a start date and a completion date. If it's not completed by that certain time, then there's penalties to your contract.
that's true.
You can take money or you get money from the total cost.
And I understand, I think Mark Moffett has a great contract. I think Mark Moffett has a great contract with people that, he can use for whatever. And this basically just, it's the, what you agree on, it should be, how they want to pay, when they want to pay. So it's gonna be Zelle, it's gonna be check, cash app, it's gonna be check, cash, whatever way you do it, that's gonna be set up. It should be, I'm gonna give you this much to start, and then if it's a 6-week scenario, so let's say it's $30,000 rehab, so you got 6 to 8 weeks, so you should break that up into weekly increments, whatever. And it should be, sometimes it might be a little bit more because you got bigger items. So if you got a roof, that might take a bigger chunk out, but it's going to be determined based on your scope of work on your 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is. So trying to create a scope of work, and hell, I never ate my time around because what happens, things happen. So I can't expect you to continue to do what you did if I didn't do what I need. So it has to be a give and take. If it's progress, then you negotiate. Okay, if it's supposed to be 6,000, can I get 3,000? Okay, we'll finish that up. Because it could rain, it could be whatever that happens, material. You want to basically have some scenario where you control the outcome or whatever. Because at the end of the day, every time you start a new contract, you lose money. Because new contractors are always going to tell you what the old contract did. Well, I got to start this all over. That's the favorite scenario. Hell, I do. I'm actually getting it wrong. You learn that. So the thing is, try to have a relationship where the fact is your contractor may let you down, but as long as he's working in the right direction or whatever, it may be 6 weeks. But like I said, it might be 8 weeks to finish the job, but after the 8 weeks, it's a penalty phase on that particular. Well, I'm a contractor myself, so I pretty much do everything, all my stuff I do myself. That's what I would tell you, building contractors is find a supply house. Like what I mean by that is.
Can you repeat that question?
People always ask, how do you find good contractors? If you go to the pro desk at any Home Depot, that's where all your pros go, right? You can go over that area and you can ask, hey, do you know a good painter? If you look for a good painter, go to Sherman Williams, go to Pittsburgh Paint. They got cars sitting right there. Take 3, 4 of them and call them and say, okay, look, the other thing is this, do your homework. can I come to a job you're working at right now? And the reason why I say that is because you can see the policy, see things working, right? In today's society, if you're not working, there's something wrong, right? So people call me all the time and say, come out, yes, no problem, come this house over here, come in that house, whatever. If I'm doing the kitchen for you, I clear the kitchen, I just finished up. Hey, we did a finish, hey, this finish, we just finished up. So do a little extra work. So if they working, they should be working somewhere. If they're not, then stay away from them. That's the first thing. Second thing is, just when you get started, like I said, just get them to get the material, have it sent over there, and then once they get to the job, get the pay when they start. You know, because really you don't need the money ahead of time, you're not buying material, right? That's the cost. That's why most contractors need the money because they got material. If you control the material cost, then the fact is they just start the job, they have to get, you know, and then they got all types of media between quick pays, chase, whatever it is. So the fact is you can get the money when you sit there, you push the button, they get it. So okay, you meet there, you get there, and then on Friday you get another pay. That makes sense? I'm sorry.
Mine was just really quick, what you had discussed earlier about the auto pay.
Yeah.
How do you set that up for the co-pay?
Okay, basically, a lot of these programs.
Repeat the question.
Okay, how do you set up auto pay? Well, basically, they got all kind of property management software. Software may cost you $20, $10, whatever it is. And what happens is most of them have programs where the fact is they can do a ACH debit, right? And then what I do is, if you had an account, what I would do is, when we got ours, we went to Comerica Bank, and I made it in a situation where anybody who didn't have a bank, they had to get ACH. I mean, they had to get a bank account opened up through Chase or, you know, whatever bank that was closest to wherever our apartment was. So wherever my apartment was, I would set it up, and then from that point, I would set up auto pay with them based on the date that money came in. So most times they know what day it's a Social Security or whatever pension is getting. I'm dealing with seniors. Their money is, you know, once or twice a month. So whatever day it came in, that's the date I had to take it out.
So if they didn't have an account.
I set it up.
You would have to, what if they don't qualify for an account?
Well, the thing is, you know, Cash App, you can have Cash App, you can have Chime. I've never had it where I couldn't get them to get an account. You know, like with, you know, check systems, I know what you're talking about, but you know, with all these online banks, Chime, Cash App, they, you know, people can get accounts set up. So that was something I didn't have too many problems.
Rock Financial.
Mhm.
I know they partner with the veterans for assisting them with their rental and all that. Is that
Okay, let me be clear about it. They don't really partner with, they just got funds for them. Like, I think they had like a $10 million fund, whatever it is. So if they got behind, they would just cover, they would basically send in, and it didn't come through us, it would come through Southwest Solutions, Disability Network. So basically I will have my case, so like that person will have a caseworker, right? I would contact the caseworker and say, okay, hey, John is behind, he's running a little bit of situation. Okay, no problem. We can probably get him some money through this particular agency. And Rock Financial just happened to be one of them, but they got 19 different agencies that got money for them.
and that's not just exclusive to Detroit. That's
Any-
all over the state.
It's all over the country.
Okay.
Any place where veterans are, they got programs. Well, I just figured out all the places that were in the Metro Detroit area. Okay.
Can you kind of repeat that question?
What you asked me about was, you know, the Rock Financial habit. I said, well, it's technically not Rock Financial. It's through the agency, and they built the relationship up for the veterans with these agencies. And I just gave it to them. A lot of our money came from Rock Financial, but it also came from other agencies too as well. It's just like Rock just happened to be one of them. Where they had a fund for veterans. They had, you know, like for houses, you know, for like furniture. I forgot what company worked with, but they will have a whole house full of furniture, bedding, sofa, living room, dining room, everything would be in there. If they DTE got behind, they had a program for that. It'd be through a call or whatever it is. But each one of the veterans have a caseworker, and the caseworker will basically know which program would be best for them.
So basically, you're saying they always have some assistance to pay the rent,
Unless
pay
it's
light,
just-
gas.
unless it's just a deadbeat. You know what I'm saying? But at this point in time, I didn't have a situation where I didn't have to evict a tenant because of non-payment. I did have to evict tenant, but it wasn't because of non-payment. You know, I try to be as honest. Think about it. They seniors, they're older, whatever it is, could have drinking problem, whatever it is. So I never had to evict one for that particular for payment. I mean, for other reasons, yeah, but you know, because they were disorderly or whatever. But that was pretty rare. I mean, out of 45 plus 10, I think we had 2 or 3 evictions, so that wasn't that bad. So, any questions?
So I know you talked about that evaluating to
Yeah.
John Wood. So we've been looking to buy, like, well, you was like, not looking for it, what is it, the whole?
Buy and hold.
Buy and hold. So what is your recommendation to someone who wants to start? Because I'm thinking more so I want to get some income, but also to be able to offset some of my taxes. What would you suggest for a person like myself who has no experience, we just want to go buy? I don't want to do $1,000 house, but it's petrifying to suggest someone just get a mortgage and then rent that way, or?
Well, they got 2 different kind of ways to look at it.
Repeat the question.
Okay, she said that she don't want to buy a cheap house where like this, she got a lot of rehab. Should she buy something that's in better shape and get a mortgage on it? Well, there's 2 types of situations like that. Well, if you buy where it's too high, it may not cash flow. So what you want to do is make sure that it's something into, all right, whatever area you live in, I would tell you to do a 6 or 8 block radius, right? And the reason why I say that is you know the area, right? Well, that area should dictate situation. So they got what they call, they got, you know, Trulia, Zillow, you can look and see what the rental comparisons are in that area. So what you want to do is take that number of whatever Trulia and Zillow saying what the rental amount is. So let's say, for example, 7 Mile Southfield, right there between Southfield and Evergreen, between 7 Mile and Outer Drive. Those houses probably rent for $1,000 a month or $1,100 a month. Little 3-bedroom, bungalow, whatever. So now what you want to do is take that $1,000, $1,100 and say, okay, hey, look, what's my principal interest, tax insurance, and then let's say between everything, it might be $600. That'll leave $400, $500 left over. So I take 10 or 15%, put that into a reserve fund for repairs, maintenance, whatever it is. You still won't have a profit left over. I always say you try to have 20%. So after everything, if you can have, if you got $1,000, you don't want your stuff to exceed maybe $800, $750. That still leaves some money left over. Whatever. That makes sense?
When you say $200, that's only $50 a week. But that's only $50 a week, but I understand that the house is probably increasing in equity, but $50 a week, you spend $200 a month, that's not.
That's not a lot. Well, see, the thing is this. The best way to do this is to find something that's undervalued that needs you to put your TLC in, because you'll be able to get a better situation. But what you're saying is, I don't want to deal with that part of it and get into it and do the rehab. So it's a catch-22. The more you're willing to invest and do more work, then you can probably bring that. You increase your cash flow, but the fact is now on the other side, you got to deal with the headache of dealing with contractors, rehabbing, whatever it is. Well, if you find something that's in decent shape, this is what I was telling you. You can find something in decent shape and rent it out and then get paid today, or you basically get something and then wait 60, 90 days and then rent it out. Well, that's 5 months. Well, in that scenario, you take that 5 months, you made that probably whatever you did, you make it up in the 4 or 5 months you got to set up. You know, it's like I always tell people, the market dictates what you want to do. So I have people that want to get $1,200 a month rent, but you got 7 people trying to get $1,100. Well, should you wait for the $1,200 take you? If I wait 3 months, then I lost the money. Makes sense? So you just got to figure out what your ability to deal with and cope with the other part. I'm kind of fearless in the scenario where the fact is, hell, we mess up, what's the worst case that happens? Well, not everybody's like that. I just happen to know construction too, so that was a unique situation. But if you don't know construction and you're still kind of new to the game, well, you don't want to risk it. So the first one, you want to be more conservative. By the time you get to the second one, and let that run and get 6, 7 good months worth of pay, then you might be a little more risky in the second one than the first one. My first one, I bought one, a 1928 Dexter, 2 family flat. jacked up here. I didn't know anything about this. 1996. I was a manager of Arbor Drugs. I had just left there, and I show you how long it was. You know, Arbor Drugs got bought by CBS, right? Well, so but I was a manager at Arbor Drugs when it was still before. Just I think when I left, it was just turned to CBS. So I bought my first 2-family, 1928 Dexter, and I went in. I didn't know anything about rentals, but just so happened I did a lot of reading or whatever it is. And Dame Lindahl was, and some lady named Robin, somebody. She, my boy, Russ Whitney, that's who it was. Russ Whitney, he was telling me how you could basically rent a property out. Well, I bought 2-family. I put 110 in downstairs, 700, and 10 up there, 650. I think I paid $28,000 for the property altogether between rehab and it was probably the best property I ever had. I mean, sometimes it just work out that way. I mean, I was able to fix it up relatively quickly. Didn't really need a lot of work or whatever it is. Most of the stuff, and then just I used to go. I went to a church called Chapel Hill, so it was actually right down the street from Chapel Hill, right there on Dexter. I happened to see it, so I'm like, okay, let me get that. But sometimes you just find out. I always believe, you know, success is always seeking the person you're looking for, right? So once you look for it, it's gonna come to you. I started looking for it in 96 and it came. It's just the fact is that most people just not persistent in that. You know, they get a little failure and they get upset. It's a part of the problem. It's part of the solution.
You mentioned that back before '08, when you had the houses and then you let them go after the crash and bought them back for pennies on the dollar, but you took a hit on the credit.
Yeah.
Now, was the credit in your business name or personal name, or you had to personally guarantee it, even though it wasn't a business name? How did you take the hit?
I'm a person.
Okay, so you don't get your credit in your business name?
Well, okay, that's the good thing. But at that time in 2007, 2006, I didn't really know too much about business credit. Now everything is in my business name. So in fact, I got LLCs, I got business credit and 3-4 different businesses. But in 2006, 2007, I didn't really know about that. So everything was in my personal name. So I tell everybody, when you first get
Can you repeat the question?
I say, he's asking me, when I took a hit in my credit in 2006, 2007, 2008, was in my personal name, my business name. Well, it was in my personal name because I didn't really know about business credit at the time. I was just learning about it, but I didn't build any business credit. Now I have business credit built up in my business name, where the fact is my LLC, I can buy cars, I can buy houses, I can do whatever I want with my business name, credit cards, whatever. I didn't know that. So that's one thing I would tell people. Get 2 or 3 LLCs and start to build business credit. And every LLC can have their own, you want their own tax ID number, DUNS number, start building credit up, and then what happens is you can get 50, 75, $100,000 each one of them LLCs over a period of time, and it's different entities. So what happened was, I got good business credit, and then my partner had business credit, so we basically were able to use it together. He had his own, I had my own, but we had to use it together. So between both of us, we had a decent amount. And then what we did, we just leveraged some more LLCs. So business credit is a good way to start. It's a company called NAV. So what I'll tell people to do is, if you want to get business credit, get your LLC, get your DUNS number, go to nav.com, and then you can Google through TikTok, through YouTube. They got videos show you how to build business credit in 60, 90, 120 days. And it's not that difficult.
I'm sorry, I was late. What is your name and how can we contact you?
My name is Derek Scruggs.
Eric.
D-A-R-R-I-C-K.
And now this is going out over Zoom, Derek, so if you want to give out your contact information.
Sorry.
No problem, I'll tell everybody.
Okay. What's your last name?
Scruggs. And obviously, I've made every mistake in the book. That's why I can tell you so calmly on how to do or what to do. I made contractor mistakes, I made purchasing mistakes, anything you can think of. But what happened was I just kept it going. You know, I always tell people halftime is not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. So I just kept getting up and I just understood the situation and figured out that what's the alternative. I can go back to what I was doing. And I'm not saying that being and working Arbor was the best way. I just felt like it was something bigger, and I just felt like I went out there. So I just wanted to control my own destiny.
I just want to make sure I had it right. Like, how do you spell your name?
Oh, it's T-A-R-R-I-C-K.
T-A-R-R-I-C-K.
Scruggs, S-C-R. I'm gonna give everybody my number.
Okay.
Do we have any other, oh, go ahead.
You mentioned you own a 20-unit apartment building. I was thinking about possibly purchasing an apartment building. Any suggestions on what to look for and how to go about buying?
Well, most of the apartment buildings are not on the MLS, I can tell you that.
What read the question?
I said, what's a good way to find an apartment building? Well, most of the apartment buildings are not on MLS. Like I said, I've been doing this since '96, so what happens is I'm at meetings like this on a regular basis, so I go to different ones. But the best way to do it is,
I'm searching on LoopNet.
LoopNet. See, the problem you have with LoopNet, most of that stuff is expired listings or whatever it is, or it's maxed out. You know what I'm saying? You're either gonna find a gym that's gonna be in good shape and don't need no work, or you're gonna find one over there on Dexter and Joy Road that probably just about to fall down. That's not, see, the thing is this, I think I was telling a 20-unit rehab is an undertaking, right? Because I would say that on averages, you're probably looking at, if you got a rehab of 20 units, you're probably looking at $10,000 to $15,000. You're looking at $300,000. It's not the money, it's the time. So let's say you start today, you're probably looking at 9 months before you see any money. So you're gonna get constantly, you're just gonna constantly be spending money on, see, on $300,000, 10 to 15% over is $45,000, right? So your expenses just extrapolate on stuff like that. So I would say when you first get started, unless you're good with the contractor, you're good with doing certain situations, try to find something that's in the middle that only needs minor work. I'm on my own construction company, so I can do everything myself. My brother a contractor, my dad a contractor, so we all work together. I got a list of every trade that you can have, but I've been doing it for so long that I know who I get. I know what the price goes. When I go in there and I know if I got to do a 20 pound service all we do, it's gonna cost me this much money. I can figure it out. That's what people make their big mistakes. So I would say if you're gonna do a apartment building, everything is gonna be extrapolated. A boiler gonna cost you $25,000. Roof gonna cost you $40,000. So the numbers just extrapolated based on that scenario. So when you first get started, try to find something that's in the middle. Don't need too much work, but ain't completely, because it's completely fixed up, you can't make no money. You want to be somewhere in the middle. You want the vacancy to be not too high. Because what happens is this, and this is one thing that I'll tell everybody. Whatever you get from the owner, it probably ain't true. You know, because see, remember, the thing is they put tenants in right before they sell it. But everybody's selling for a reason, right? If it was an ideal building, why they selling? And then they give you a good deal. Now, if you're selling it for a premium, okay, that's good. But when they sell it to you in the middle number or whatever it is, basically he's just putting tenants in there. So now you got to deal with the headache, get these people out or whatever it is. So be careful. Look at the lease dates. See if you can see bank statements to correspond to the situation. So try to look at it, do your due diligence or whatever it is. It should be 6 months of bank statement to show that they got this, or unless they got Section 8 or some kind of contract. If you got contract, it don't make a difference. They can move in yesterday, but you know that contract is for 12 months, so it don't make a difference. So try to be careful when you try to get into bigger units. The number just extrapolate, and it takes longer. And one mistake on $30,000 on a $300,000 building, it can easily go up to $400,000.
Your advice on first time buyer before.
Well, the thing is this, I always say, where would that be at? I always say, I ain't trying to find, ain't too many good 4 families in Detroit.
Repeat the question.
There ain't too many good 4, because see, you can the Hazelwood, the Philadelphia's, whatever it is. The problem you have is you can bet off on a 2-family, because it's a 2-family gonna be in a better area. Most of your 4 families in decaying areas, right? My motto is a suspect area gonna give you suspect tenants, right? So you gotta look at the quality of tenants you can bring. Now, even though you may be able to get that 4 family, but who can you get to go over there? The veterans don't even want to go over there because in fact it's a bad area. So try to always look at it from the standpoint of your area is almost more important than the house. See, our motto used to be, we want to buy the worst house in the best area. See, people do it vice versa. They buy the best house in the worst area. Well, you can't bring the neighborhood up. That one, see, the area is going to always steadily decay. So when it starts decaying, it's going to go faster that way than it is going this way. But the best house the worst house in the best area, you can bring that house up. So that's the issue you found with 4 family. I owned the 4-family, and I owned it on Philadelphia. Well, hell, ain't nothing over in Philadelphia, but vacant houses here. And I bought my 4-family back in 2000. That was a long time ago, and it went south. So be careful when you buying like unique houses, you know, because it look like you can get it, but the fact is, okay, who you gonna get to go over there? And then the fact is, who all doing rehab in the area? Now, if you know like of some potential renovations in that area, then it's a possibility. But you know, you got to look at it from a business standpoint. Who you gonna get over there when there's a lot of vacancies over there? Vacancies it becomes difficult for you to get quality people over there because even the veterans don't want to go over there. If I take them over there, I still got to be able to get them to like that particular place because they still got an option to say no. So what I try to do is eliminate that problem. I try to put them in the best area. So ours was on 1685 Lasher. It was right here, around the corner. We had a landscape. It was the best building in an okay area. You know, because apartment buildings typically, always remember that, apartments typically not in the best area, right? That's why apartments there, so it's more in a commercial kind of area, right? So you want to be in an okay area because the 8 Mile apartments is too expensive. So you want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to find somewhere they got too many vacancies. So you want to buy a building where it got a lot of vacancies right next to it because now then your renovation is going to get a lot of that. Okay.
So, my friend, she is, that's where we're buying a house in East Grand Boulevard. Do you know if they still, are they selling houses on East Grand Boulevard?
I'm doing one right now on East Grand Boulevard, 846 East Grand Boulevard.
Okay, she's like, I gotta have me a house, I said, but ask her.
Well, okay, let me be clear about that. East Grand Boulevard is unique in the scenario because it's actually right off Gratiot, right? So that's kind of unique. It's close to the downtown or whatever it is. If you look at it, they're doing a lot of renovations over there.
Yeah.
So that's a different area. So what happens is, if you buy, you want to find an area where the fact that they're doing, and this actually a neutral kind of area. You got whites and blacks in the area. So whenever you see a mix in there, it actually kind of unique in that. So it's East Grand Boulevard, right there. We're doing 2. I think 812 East Grand Boulevard and 846.
How close are you to Jefferson? Close to the Gratiot or Jefferson?
This is right off of it's close to Mac. Mac and yeah, Gratiot, Mac. So that's a 4-family in that area, but most of them in that area, you know, they be in bad areas. So try to find somewhere like you got some kind of renovation. You see some contractor trucks outside, whatever. You that's what you want to buy. Any additional questions?
Any other questions? All right, let's give Mr. Scruggs a big round of applause. All right, so I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Our speaker for our next meeting, which is always on the 3rd Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. here at Cobre's, Coney Island, here at Northwestern and 10 Mile. Our speaker for the next meeting is going to be Todd Chun. Todd is a wholesaler. He's been wholesaling for 6 years. Todd does over 100 wholesale deals per year, almost. Well, he does all over, but he does a ton in Detroit. So he's going to be our speaker for our next meeting. All right, you can cut it off.